So recently I went on a trip to Amsterdam and I tried some really amazing food, among other interesting things. One of the places that we had a really great experience at was Restaurant de Casse. And this is a restaurant situated in a park housed in an old style greenhouse. Their menu is created based on what was in season and what their farm is growing at the time. They even have an indoor growing area inside the restaurant for herbs and edible flowers. One of their ethoses is to harvest their produce in the mornings and then have it on your plate by lunchtime. And I love the idea of this, so after the meal I decided I'd go and buy their cookbook, which is this. On the day, one of the dishes that really stood out was this beetroot gazpacho, which is weird because I'm not even a huge fan of beetroot, but the amount of flavour that they got into this tiny bowl was something special. And it just so happens that one of the recipes in this book is the beetroot gazpacho that we tried that day. So I thought I'd try to recreate the dish and share it with you. So let's start with the beetroot. I'm using a ready-to-eat, pre-prepped beetroot as they didn't have any fresh ones in the supermarket. If you can get fresh, that would be great, but this still worked really well and tasted great. It also saved time on peeling and prepping the beetroot. Now I couldn't actually find any beetroot juice either, so I'm going to make my own. So add the beetroot into the machine and juice them. I used around 1.5 of these packets, which gave me around 300 ml of juice, which is just slightly above what I need. For this recipe, all of the ingredients and measurements will be in the description. So start by adding your beetroot to a blender along with the fresh beetroot juice, half an onion which I cut into chunks, and half a tomato which I also cut into chunks. Then about 1/8 of a cucumber peeled and chopped, and 1/3 of a small pointed pepper, and 1/4 of a small avocado. Now for the aromatics, about half of a chilli with the seeds removed. I'm using a bird's eye chilli. Then about 2 centimeters of ginger without the peel, and 1 garlic clove. Apparently, if you remove the root in the middle of the garlic, this reduces the bad garlic breath, which is always good to avoid, so I'm taking that out. Then we're going to go in with about a handful of basil, coriander, and a few mint leaves. Now we're going to add in Japanese or rice wine vinegar along with olive oil. It's best to use extra virgin because it's nicer to use oil that hasn't been fucked. Finally, add in half a tablespoon of cumin, whack the lid on, and we're ready to blend. You may need to shake it up a bit to get it going, but you should be left with a beautifully coloured gazpacho. At this moment, it's quite thick and coarse, which some people like, so you can keep it like that if you want, or you can strain it with a sieve to get a finer liquid. Push the gazpacho through with a spoon and do this in stages until you're left with the pulp. Remove it and then continue with the rest until you're left with a lovely bowl of fine gazpacho. Now taste it and season it with salt and pepper gradually until you hit the right amount of seasoning for your taste preference. I added quite a generous amount of salt. Then once you're ready, cover it and leave it in the fridge until you're ready to serve. Now for the garnish, I sliced up some tomato, make sure you give it a good season. I also had a bit of beetroot left over, so I cut that into cubes. Season that as well, and for a bit of colour I'm using watercress, and for some more crunch I'm crushing up some croutons. Then finally, to pour over the top of the gazpacho, I'm making a simple vinaigrette of olive oil and balsamic vinegar. Don't forget to season that as well. Then all that's left to do is to plate up. You could absolutely eat this without the garnish. I just feel it's a little bit nicer to have different textures going on, so add on some garnish, have a bit of fun with it, and there we have a pretty nice looking bowl of gazpacho. Right then, here we have our beetroot gazpacho. Let's taste it. Yeah, this is really nice. I'd say it's very close to how it was in the restaurant. Yeah, super fresh. Flavor's great. Nice. This is actually quite easy to make. There's no cooking involved, it's just prepping up the vegetables, making the juice, and then just blending it all together and seasoning it. Yeah, I'd say that's a success.
A great success!
It was pretty close to what I had in the restaurant. Obviously it's never going to be exactly the same, but I'm happy with that, and I would definitely recommend giving that a go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.